The league has never really seen anyone quite like the phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark. There have been stars before, but there has never been anyone who drives so much audience or, frankly, so much conversation as Caitlin Clark. Hi, I'm Louisa Thomas. I'm a staff writer at The New Yorker, where I write a weekly column about sports. I am here to talk about the W.N.B.A. and, of course, Caitlin Clark. The Caitlin Clark effect really began in the NCAA. Viewership was always pretty high in women's college basketball. There's a long kind of legacy of interest, but it really exploded. Viewership records were shattered in the past tournament. Many more people watched the women's title game than watched the men's, for instance, for the first time. That kind of following has followed her to the W.N.B.A.
Going back and forth.
The young one here, Caitlin Clark, just dancing with the basketball, going to her left, stepping into it.
For a long time, people were like, oh, the women's game is not exciting. The players are not dunking. And that seemed to be what they thought basketball was like dunking, Even though there were actually players who could dunk, but, it was not this aerial game the way the men's game sometimes could be. But actually, like, the men's game has actually shifted largely. Modern basketball is played, outside the three-point line, and here comes Caitlin Clark, and she looks like Steph Curry. She looks like one of these players who can just pull up and shoot, with this kind of like assassin's shot. And that was like not only exciting, to watch, but also familiar in this way. People look at it and they're like, oh yeah, that's basketball.
Look at Wheeler staring to the right side, knows who's there, drop pass behind. Could be the deepest shot we've seen Caitlin Clark make as a pro.
I think one of the big open questions is how sustainable is this growing interest? We've seen evidence kind of both. Fever's games are selling out in ways that other games are not. At the same time, there are other rookies like Angel Reese and Cameron Brink whose jersey sales are, in the top 5 for the first month. And as rivalries with Reese, for instance, kind of help generate a lot of interest, then there's sort of a hope that interest in the league itself will spread.
Clark head up, as always, just run with it and finish it.
And there's a big conversation, sometimes a very angry conversation, argument, you might say, around, what the players' response has been, because Clark has received, I would say, pretty unprecedented defensive attention. And some people are arguing that that's because the current players are, quote unquote, jealous of her, envious of her and her acclaim. And other people are saying, like, look, this is a very, very physical league, and it's actually kind of insulting to say that this is all just resentment. This is one of the most competitive sports leagues in the world. There are not very many spots. These players are extremely competitive. I think it's actually not that surprising that a lot of them are viewing the defensive assignment with a little bit of a special intensity.